The ghost in the void for centuries. The galaxy had forgotten the name of Earth. Humanity had been erased from the records of empires, their history rewritten by those who feared them. Stars burned, empires rose, and species evolved. Yet the memory of mankind remained only as a whisper among the oldest races. But that silence ended one cold cycle when a faint signal touched the edge of the Orion sector. It was weak, distorted, but it carried a human code that no one had heard in hundreds of years. The code simply said, "Vanguard returning." The message spread like wildfire across the communication nets. At first, the alien stations dismissed it as cosmic interference, a random pattern made by dying stars. But when the signal repeated again and again, always with the same human code, the laughter stopped. Patrol drones near the edge of the void picked up something massive, moving with purpose, a shadow in the darkness, larger than any known ship. It drifted silently, without transponders, without lights, and when scanners finally caught its shape, the galaxy froze. It was a Terran warship. Not just any vessel, but the lost dreadnought known as TSS Vanguard. The ship that vanished during the final human war 3 centuries ago. Its hull was scarred and blackened, its engines glowing faintly with unknown power. Ancient Terran markings still burned across the plating, carved deep by fire and war. The same markings that once made the galaxy tremble. The first alien scouts who approached it never returned. Their ships went dark, their transmissions ended mid-word. No explosion, no distress signal, just silence. Rumors began to spread faster than light. Some said the ship was haunted, crewed by the dead soldiers of Earth. Others claimed it was an automated weapon that had never stopped fighting. Whatever it was, it moved slowly toward the galactic border, ignoring all hails and warnings. On the capital world of the Zalarian Empire, panic quietly bloomed in the grand halls of government. The Zalarians were once part of the coalition that burned Earth. They remembered the last human broadcast. A single sentence before the planet went silent. Do not mistake mercy for weakness now. The descendants of those same rulers watched as the ghost of humanity returned from the darkness. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Thousands of envoys, admirals, and diplomats filled the central chamber. Their holograms flickered with static as every species argued in fear. One delegate shouted that the signal must be fake. Another claimed it was a trap from rival empires. But the old ones, the races that had seen the Terrans in their prime, sat in silence. They knew what humanity was capable of. They knew that if the Vanguard had truly returned, nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. Meanwhile, far from their debates, the ship drifted into a dead system filled with the wrecks of forgotten wars. Sensors from distant probes captured eerie images of it, passing through the graveyard of ships. Some hulls were ancient, older than the Council itself. Yet as the Vanguard passed, their lights flickered back to life. Like ghosts saluting their long-lost commander, power surges followed in its wake. Magnetic storms rippled through subspace. And then under a complete silence, every probe, every satellite in that region went dark. When power returned, the Vanguard was gone, vanished again into the black in the outer colonies. The news reached the mining worlds first. Old veterans of the Terran Wars began to whisper prayers they had not spoken in decades. To them, humanity was not dead, only sleeping, waiting for the day they would rise again. Now it seemed that day had come. Children born under alien rule asked their elders what humans were like. The answer was always the same. They were fire wrapped in flesh. Across the stars, fleets scrambled, orders flew, and fear spread faster than reason. No one dared to shoot. No one dared to approach the void where the Vanguard had been seen. The Council issued a command to remain calm, but their words were hollow because deep down, every species knew that if humans had found a way to return, then everything they had built in their absence was now at risk. In a lonely outpost near the Perseus Rift, an old sensor operator named Karan noticed something strange. A faint human code repeating through the static. Growing stronger with each hour, he watched the data lines shift, forming a phrase he had to translate manually. When he finally decoded it, his hands trembled. The message was short. Written in Terran Standard, it said, "Earth command restored." Karan froze, staring at the words on his screen. He tried to contact his superiors, but the system began to flicker. Through the static, a shadow appeared, the unmistakable silhouette of a Terran dreadnought. Its engines pulsed once, brighter than a star, and then the feed cut off. The last thing Karen saw before everything went dark was the emblem of Earth glowing faintly on the ship's side. A white circle with a blue line crossing through the stars. In that moment, every listening station across the rim received the same transmission. A voice, calm and human, filled the void, it said. To all who hear this, the Terran Alliance has returned. Then silence followed. Heavy, endless silence. The galaxy held its breath. Because the ghost in the void was no longer just a legend. It was the beginning of humanity's return, and this time, the stars themselves would remember their name. The Council's panic, the message from the void, shattered the fragile peace of the galaxy. Every major empire received the same transmission, each one confirming the impossible. The humans, the ancient species that once defied the combined strength of 10 empires, had returned. At first, disbelief ruled the chambers of power. But fear quickly followed. For centuries. The Galactic Council had built its rule upon the ashes of Earth. Now those ashes were moving again, and they glowed with the light of vengeance. In the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, chaos reigned. Thousands of delegates shouted over one another, their voices overlapping in a storm of panic. The air shimmered with holograms of warships, sensor data, and blurry images of the returning dreadnought. Admiral Sura of the Veth Dominion slammed her hand against the console. This cannot be real, she hissed. The humans were eradicated. Their world turned to glass, but the hologram before her told a different story. The Terran warship Vanguard had been identified beyond all doubt. Its hull pattern matched the archives perfectly, right down to the ancient scars left from the last war. High above the council floor, Chancellor Vorn of the Zilarian Empire tried to keep order. He was old, his skin pale and trembling, but his voice still carried the authority of a ruler who remembered the last Terran stand. He raised his clawed hand and slowly the chamber quieted. The humans are gone, he declared. They cannot return. This must be a trick, a fabrication of the Rift Syndicate. But even as he spoke, the holoscreen behind him flickered again. A new image appeared. The unmistakable shape of another Terran vessel, emerging from the void near the Huron expanse, larger than any known ship. Its hull burned with the same black metal that no alien technology could replicate. Gasps rippled through the crowd like waves. The Eltherians, the oldest race in the galaxy, broke their usual silence. Their high oracle spoke in a trembling voice. The humans warned us once, before they vanished. Her golden eyes dimmed as she repeated the ancient words etched in their records. They said, when the stars remember our name. Done. No one in the council dared to breathe. Across the stars, fleets began mobilizing without permission. The Arkan Combine activated its border defenses. The Krath Syndicate recalled every ship from exploration zones. Even the mighty Veth Dominion moved their fleets away from human space, as if retreating could erase what they feared. But it was already too late. Human signals were appearing in every major data channel, encrypted in ways that no alien codebreaker could decipher. Some believed it was random noise. Others believed it was preparation. But everyone knew it meant one thing. Humanity was awake again. On the outer colony of Lithara Prime, a massive public broadcast was being viewed by billions. A news anchor, her voice trembling, reported live footage from the sector where the human dreadnought was last seen. Behind her, the endless void shimmered, and then, for just 1 second, the colossal shadow of the Vanguard passed across the stars. The transmission cut off instantly. Millions of viewers screamed, billions prayed. The phrase "they're back" became the most repeated message in galactic networks, spreading faster than light itself. Back in the council chamber, Admiral Vorn demanded action. Send a fleet, he barked. Track them, contain them, before they reach the inner systems. But the council was divided. Some argued that provoking the Terrans would be suicide. Others demanded immediate war to prove that the galaxy was no longer afraid. Amid the shouting, the chamber's lights flickered. Every hologram froze, replaced by a single glowing Terran emblem, a white circle crossed by a blue line. And then, a human voice spoke across every communication channel in the building. Calm and steady. This is Earth Command, the voice said. We remember. Then it vanished, leaving only static. The silence that followed was unbearable. Delegates stared at one another. Unable to move, some whispered prayers, others demanded answers. The high oracle of the Eltherians fell to her knees, whispering, "The cycle has returned." The Chancellor tried to restore calm, but no one listened. Fear had spread like infection. unstoppable and absolute. In the days that followed, the galaxy shifted, trade routes closed, border patrols tripled, and ancient rivalries reignited under the shadow of human return. Entire civilizations dug through their history, trying to find anything that might protect them from what was coming. Archivists uncovered old human battle reports, each one ending the same way. Enemy fleet destroyed. No survivors. The more they read, the colder their blood ran. On the third day after the Vanguard's reappearance, a secret meeting took place on the moon of Drath. 6 of the most powerful military leaders gathered to discuss the human problem. They agreed on one thing. If humanity truly returned, the galaxy as they knew it would not survive. And so they began to plan. A coalition of fear was born that night, sworn to eliminate humanity once and for all. But even as they plotted, the stars above them flickered once as if laughing, because the humans had already begun to move, and the galaxy in all its arrogance had no idea what it was waking up. The council thought it could control the storm they did not yet understand. The storm was already here, and its name was humanity. The message from Earth 3. Days after the council's panic, the galaxy fell into a tense and suffocating silence. Every empire watched the dark edges of their borders, waiting for the next signal. But what came wasn't a fleet, wasn't an attack. It was a voice, a human voice, old yet steady, echoing through every channel across the stars. Do not enter Terran space, it said. What sleeps beneath the blue planet must not be awakened. The transmission repeated 7 times, each time clearer, stronger, more impossible to ignore. Then it stopped, leaving only static and the beating hearts of terrified listeners. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy stood still. The message was short, but its meaning was thunder. If humans were warning the galaxy away, then what were they protecting? In the military command room of the Veth Dominion, Admiral Sura leaned forward over the glowing holomap. Her claws tapped the metal desk, sending sharp echoes across the silence. Are we really supposed to believe this? She muttered. A dead species telling us where not to go? Her second-in-command swallowed hard. With respect, Admiral, the last fleet that approached Earth never returned. Sura's eyes narrowed. Then we'll make sure ours does. And with that, she ordered a reconnaissance force toward the Sol system. 12 ships, fast and heavily armed, sent to uncover what was really hidden on Earth across the galaxy. The broadcast rippled through every civilization. Merchants stopped their trading routes. Explorers pulled back their drones. And even pirates who never feared the law refused to enter human sectors. Superstition spread like wildfire. They called it the Terran warning. Stories told of ships vanishing the moment they crossed old human borders. No distress signals, no wreckage, no trace. Only silence, yet still arrogance drove the council to act. They couldn't allow a single human message to control the galaxy. Meanwhile, in the ruins of an ancient Terran colony called Haven 3, deep scanners flickered to life. Under layers of dust and forgotten metal, something began to move. A power signature activated. Older than the current age of the stars, the ground shook as great slabs of metal rose, revealing hidden bunkers and buried ships. All carried the same markings. United Terran Command. Machines that hadn't stirred in centuries began humming like living things. The colony was waking up, responding to the same frequency as the mysterious broadcast. Back in the Council's secure chamber, data analysts struggled to trace the origin of the human message. It wasn't coming from any ship. It was coming directly from Earth. But Earth was supposed to be a dead world. Glassed, radioactive, uninhabitable. Yet the readings told a different story. The planet's core was pulsing with energy. Something was alive beneath the surface. One of the younger council members whispered, "What if humanity never died? What if they went underground?" His words sent a chill through the room. No one dared to respond because deep down, everyone had thought the same thing. On the edge of the Sol system, Admiral Sura's fleet crossed the ancient Terran border. The moment they did, their instruments began to fail. Navigation screens went black. Radar flickered with false echoes. Then, one by one, the ships started to vanish from formation. Their signals winked out. First 1, then 2, then all 12. The command center back in the Dominion tried to contact them, but every transmission was met with the same reply and static. Then a new sound emerged, low and rhythmic, a human heartbeat echoing through the comms. The technicians screamed as their consoles overloaded. The heartbeat grew louder, then faded into silence. The next day, the Dominion received a single transmission. A still image, Admiral Sura's ship drifting in the void, no damage, no crew. Just a message burned across its hull in ancient Terran text. "We warned you," panic tore through the council once more. Now there was no denying it. Humanity wasn't gone, they were awake, watching, and powerful enough to erase fleets without firing a shot. The Chancellor demanded to seal the borders, but it was too late. Reports began flooding in. Abandoned human beacons were lighting up across multiple sectors, each one sending the same encoded pulse. A sequence of numbers that, when decoded, revealed a chilling phrase. Earth Command online, across the stars. An invisible web began to spread. A human network reactivating after centuries of silence. No one understood how. No one knew why. But every scientist who analyzed the code agreed on one thing. The humans weren't coming back. They were already here, waiting beneath the surface of forgotten worlds, and their silence had never meant defeat. It had meant preparation. The council gathered again, but the fear was no longer hidden. The galaxy had laughed when humanity vanished, now it whispered in terror, because the humans had spoken only once, and it was not a threat. It was a warning, and somewhere in the shadow of a forgotten Earth, something ancient and human stirred awake. The stars dimmed, the void trembled, and across the silent network, one phrase began to pulse again and again. The Terran Alliance returns. The awakening fleet for days, the galaxy held its breath. No new transmissions came, no warnings followed. Only a silence so deep it felt alive, but that quiet wasn't peace. It was the calm before something vast and ancient began to move, and in the dark side of Luna's shadow, humanity's secret stirred for the first time in centuries. Hidden beneath layers of rock and forgotten dust, vast hangar doors groaned open, each one miles wide, carved into the moon itself long before the galaxy ever believed humanity was gone. Inside slept ships, hundreds of them black, angular, and heavy with dust. Their hulls bore names erased from galactic records. Atlas, Sentinel, Eternity, Vanguard, one by one. Their lights came alive like awakening stars. Energy readings surged, shaking even the planetary crust. Luna, the silent witness of humanity's exile, roared back to life. Deep within the central hangar, a machine older than most civilizations blinked awake. It was Eos Core, the heart of Earth Command's hidden network. For 300 years it had watched, waited, learning in silence. Now, triggered by the return signal from the Vanguard, it activated every sleeper system across human space. Subterranean bunkers on Mars, undersea domes on Europa, orbital rings around Titan, all reconnected. And in the darkness of a long-dead control room, a hologram flickered to life, the form of a woman. Dressed in the old Terran uniform, her voice calm but cold. Terran Command Protocol 1, restore the fleet. Across the Sol system, mechanical arms began assembling warships from buried fragments. Ancient forges reignited, plasma rivers flowed once more. Each structure pulsed with synchronized rhythm, Earth's heartbeat returning after centuries of silence. Aliens observing from the edge of human space watched in disbelief as entire moons lit up like artificial suns. They transmitted frantic messages back to the Council. Human industry detected unknown-scale energy output beyond recorded limits. But by the time those messages arrived, it was already too late. In orbit above the barren Earth, the Vanguard drifted like a guardian, its engines whispering to the stars. It transmitted short bursts of coded light toward the planet below. Beneath the scorched crust, the ground moved. Dust and ash split apart as underground bunkers opened. Massive silos released elevators carrying black monoliths, ships older than memory yet still pristine. Each one hummed with power no alien science could replicate. For these were not just warships. They were living fortresses, machines fused with human will and AI consciousness. The fleet humanity had built in secret when they realized extinction was near. From the shadows of Jupiter's orbit, a hidden relay station activated. Dozens of long-range communication arrays turned toward the stars. Messages began streaming outward, not to the galaxy, but to the edges of deep human space. Earth Command restored. All units return, the message repeated endlessly. And somewhere far beyond the known sectors, in forgotten corners of the void, humanity's outposts began to stir. Colonies thought to be dead flickered with light. Sleeping war satellites reoriented their guns. Old Terran AIs bound by oath and code awoke to the call of home. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council struggled to contain the chaos. Reports flooded in faster than they could be silenced. Entire sensor grids failed when pointed towards Sol. Ships sent to observe either vanished or returned damaged beyond repair. A single scout ship that survived showed footage that shook the Council to its core. The Vanguard surrounded by a halo of energy, and around it, dozens of newly reactivated human ships forming formation patterns lost to history. Their hulls glowed with eerie blue light, their weapons offline, yet their presence alone radiated a warning. The humans are rebuilding, one delegate whispered. The High Oracle of the Eltherians closed her eyes. No, she said softly. They were never broken. Back on Earth, through the shifting clouds and ash storms, cities began to rise. Structures of white metal unfolded from beneath the ruins. Gardens bloomed where radiation once choked the soil. Machines hummed quietly, rebuilding what had been lost above it all. The Vanguard sent one last transmission across the stars, a phrase encoded in every galactic language impossible to ignore. Earth lives. The word spread faster than any fleet. Across empires, across borders, through fear and disbelief, children of alien worlds asked what it meant. Elders whispered stories they were never supposed to tell, stories of fire raining from the heavens, of humans who fought entire armadas with one ship, of men and women who refused to surrender even when their world burned. Now those same humans were rising again and the stars trembled, for the galaxy had forgotten the fury of Earth. But Earth had never forgotten the galaxy, and from the moon's shadow, as the Vanguard's engines thundered to life, a single voice echoed across the command deck. Calm and certain, Terran fleet status active. Awaiting orders. The great human fleet turned slowly toward the stars, and for the first time in 300 years, the galaxy felt fear not of the unknown, but of what it had once known too well. The return of command, the stars over Earth burned brighter than they had in centuries. The Terran fleet now drifted in perfect formation above the blue planet. Each warship gleamed with fresh energy, its hull lines pulsing with life, and at the center of them all, the dreadnought Vanguard stood like a silent throne. From its bridge came a voice long thought buried by time. Command system stabilized, said the ship's AI, its tone firm and human-like. Admiral Rebecca Stone, reactivation confirmed. Deep inside the command deck, a cryopod hissed open. Frost poured across the steel floor as a figure stepped out. A woman in her late 30s, her eyes glowing faint blue under dim light. She took a slow breath, her voice quiet but steady. How long have I slept? The AI responded, 312 years. Admiral. Her gaze hardened, a storm of memory flickering behind calm expression. The last she remembered was Earth burning, the Council's betrayal, the war that ended in silence, and now, the stars called again. She walked to the command console, her boots echoing through the deck. Below her, the blue sphere of Earth shimmered. Alive once more, status report, she ordered. The holograms came alive, maps of the Sol system. Energy readings, fleet diagnostics, all glowing green, all perfect. Every Terran world was awake, Mars, Europa, Titan, Luna, all operational, all listening. The Terran Alliance was no longer a memory. It was breathing again. Across the room, a holographic figure appeared, an old friend preserved in digital form. Admiral Carter, once her second in command, now a data ghost within the Vanguard systems. He saluted, his projection flickering slightly. You did it, Stone, he said softly. They thought we were gone. She smiled faintly, a shadow of pride crossing her face. No, Carter. We waited. She turned toward the wide viewport where the Earth hung suspended in blackness. Signal the fleet, she said moments later. Every Terran ship activated its engines in perfect synchronization. Beacons lit across the system. From the ruins of Neptune's ring cities to the reborn stations on Mars, their combined transmissions formed one clear symbol, the crest of humanity, a white circle split by a single blue line pulsing across the stars. That signal reached far beyond the Sol border. Alien sensors picked it up instantly in the council chambers. Leaders stared in silence as the emblem appeared across their holoscreens. One line of text accompanied it. The Terran command has returned. The council room erupted in shouts and panic. Some demanded negotiations. Others screamed for war. But even as they argued, Every communication relay in the galaxy lit up with the same message again and again, each time spoken by the same human voice, Admiral Stone. 3 centuries ago we offered peace, she said. You answered with fire, you burned our cities, our children, our world. Her voice stayed calm, almost too calm. For generations. You ruled over ashes that were not yours to claim. The hologram of her face filled every known communication hub. Now the time of silence is over. Across distant worlds, aliens watched in awe and terror, some kneeling, some trembling. To them, she looked less like a commander and more like something beyond mortal. A ghost of vengeance. A reminder that humanity was not an empire but a force of nature. On the Vanguard's deck, Admiral Stone turned toward the fleet. Activate the grid, she commanded. The response came instantly. Thousands of satellites cloaked for centuries powered on around the Sol system. They linked together in brilliant chains of light, forming a web that shimmered across the void. The Terran Defense Lattice. The final project of the Old Earth Command. A shield strong enough to withstand supernova-level energy. To the rest of the galaxy, it was something else. A cage of light. A symbol of unchallenged dominion far beyond. On the Council's flagship orbiting Kirill Prime. The Chancellor shouted in disbelief, "How is this possible?" "We destroyed them." The High Oracle answered quietly, "No, Chancellor. You only made them hide. Meanwhile on Earth, humans began to emerge from underground vaults. Generations raised in silence now stepped into daylight. Their skin pale, their eyes reflecting blue light. They were descendants of survivors, trained from birth for this day. The rebirth of their world was not random. It was planned. Every city that had fallen now rebuilt itself automatically. Every mountain that had been glassed now pulsed with life again. Humanity had not perished, it had adapted, evolved, prepared. As the fleets synchronized their power, Admiral Stone stood at the bridge window. Her reflection gleamed faintly against the backdrop of the rising sun over Earth. Carter's hologram appeared beside her. "What now, Rebecca?" he asked quietly. She didn't look away from the stars. "We don't seek revenge," she said slowly. "But they must remember." The Vanguard's engines roared to life, the deep, thunderous hum shaking the silence of space. Around it, the Terran fleet aligned into formation. The ship's lights burned like constellations. Every system, every signal, every human voice joined as one. For the first time in 3 centuries, humanity spoke with a single heartbeat. Admiral Stone raised her hand. "Terran command to all sectors," she said. "Begin the reclamation." And as her words echoed through the stars, the galaxy that once mocked Earth now trembled once more. Because the humans had returned not as victims, not as ghosts, but as legends reborn from the ashes of silence. The age of mankind had begun again, and the stars themselves bowed to the return of command. The war that never was, the galaxy prepared for a war it could never win. Every empire, every fleet, every ruler armed their ships and readied their armies. Broadcasts across 1,000 worlds warned of the Terran return. Factories screamed as new weapons were forged. But deep down, everyone knew the truth. No amount of firepower could match what humanity had become. The Galactic Council declared Code Crimson, the highest state of alert in recorded history. Their fleets formed a massive armada at the border of Terran space. 10,000 ships gathered, cruisers, dreadnoughts, carriers from every empire united by fear, the largest alliance since the burning of Earth at the center of the fleet. The Chancellor stood on the bridge of his flagship Eternal Grace. He stared into the void where human space began. It looked peaceful, too peaceful. And that was what frightened him most. "Transmit final demand," he ordered, his voice trembling slightly. A signal was sent toward Seoul, echoing across the stars. "This is the Galactic Council," the message declared. "You are in violation of the peace accords. Stand down your fleets or face annihilation." The words hung in silence. And then came the reply. It wasn't from a person. Not at first. It was from the stars themselves. All across the Armada's communication systems, a faint heartbeat began to pulse. Every rhythm perfectly timed, every sound synchronized. Then, Admiral Rebecca Stone's voice cut through the static like thunder. "You have not yet understood," she said quietly. "This is not war. This is consequence." Before anyone could respond, every alien ship's control system froze. Engines powered down, targeting systems flickered and failed. Entire dreadnoughts drifted helplessly as if gravity itself had turned against them. Their weapons refused to fire, their defenses offline. The Council's admirals shouted in panic as they realized what was happening. Humanity hadn't just built ships. They had rewritten the laws of war. From beyond the void, the Terran fleet emerged. Thousands of black silhouettes gliding in silence. No bright colors, no insignias, no flashing lights, only shadows moving with impossible precision. Their formation was perfect, each ship turning as if one single mind commanded them all. The Vanguard led the front, its engines burning blue like the eyes of a god. And then, nothing. No weapons fired, no attack came, only silence, humanity. On the bridge of the Eternal Grace, the Chancellor screamed for his weapons to engage. But the screens around him turned black, replaced by a single glowing emblem, the Terran insignia, the white circle and blue line, pulsing softly. Then Admiral Stone appeared, her eyes calm, her voice steady. 3 centuries ago, you called humanity primitive, she said. You thought you destroyed us. You were wrong. She raised her hand, and the background behind her changed. Images of Earth rebuilt, cities shining, oceans alive again. We do not come for revenge. We come to correct what you broke. Suddenly, the stars around the alien fleet shifted. A massive distortion filled the void. Sensors screamed as entire regions of space folded inward like reflections in water. It wasn't a weapon. It was human technology manipulating gravity itself. Every alien ship drifted inside a silent field of frozen light. Their crews could still move, still breathe, but their ships no longer obeyed them. Human AI had infiltrated every system without firing a single shot. Then, one by one, the alien screens flickered with new text. System override complete. Stand down. No ship could resist, no command could bypass it. The galaxy's greatest fleets were powerless. And through it all, the Terran fleet never opened fire. The Chancellor fell to his knees. He looked at the image of Admiral Stone standing calmly aboard the Vanguard. What do you want? He whispered. She answered softly. Only balance. At her signal, the Terran fleet withdrew. Their ships turned away from the paralyzed armada. Engines humming with quiet grace as they passed, alien systems rebooted. Power restored, not one ship had been destroyed. Not one life taken. Yet every commander understood what had happened. Humanity could have ended them all in seconds. But they chose not to. Across the stars, fear turned to silence. Empires stood down their fleets. Council broadcasts declared an uneasy truce, calling it the war that never was. But every soldier who witnessed that day knew the truth. It wasn't peace. It was mercy. In the aftermath, human transmissions continued to echo across the galaxy. Simple messages, always ending with the same words. We are watching. Remember mercy. On the bridge of the Vanguard, Admiral Stone stood alone. The stars reflected in her eyes, endless and quiet. Carter's hologram appeared beside her, a faint smile on his face. You could have destroyed them, he said. She nodded slowly. Yes. But then we would have become them. Below, Earth shone bright and alive. The ocean sparkled like sapphire. The lights of new cities glowed softly beneath the clouds. For the first time in centuries, the stars around Sol were safe. Not because humanity ruled them, but because the galaxy finally understood the price of its arrogance. Admiral Stone turned away from the window. Deactivate combat readiness, she ordered quietly. The Vanguard's engines dimmed. The fleet entered formation around Earth as silence returned to space. The voice of the Terran AI whispered softly through the ship. Command restored, Admiral. Awaiting your next directive, she smiled faintly. Let them learn, she said, and let the stars remember what peace feels like when it belongs to humanity. And so the Terran fleet rested once more, not as conquerors, not as ghosts, but as watchers in the dark. The galaxy called it mercy. Humanity called it justice, and the stars, for the first time in ages, called it peace. The silence after the storm. The war that never happened left the galaxy trembling in awe and disbelief. No fleets were destroyed, no worlds burned, and yet everything had changed for the first time in known history. The stars themselves seemed quieter. Every empire, every ruler, every commander knew that peace had not been won by treaties or fear. It had been granted by humanity in the days that followed. The Vanguard drifted silently above Earth's orbit. Its black hull reflected the blue glow of the planet below. No transmissions left its decks. No commands were sent to the stars. The Terran fleet simply waited, patient, vigilant, eternal to the rest of the galaxy. They were a storm contained, a sword sheathed but ready. Across alien worlds the myths began, in temples, markets, and council halls. The name human was spoken again. Some called them angels of vengeance. Others whispered they were gods wearing mortal skin. But the oldest among the alien races remembered the truth. Humans were not gods. They were survivors. And nothing in the universe was more dangerous than a survivor with purpose. On Kirill Prime, the Chancellor stepped down in silence. He had seen Admiral Stone's eyes, cold, ancient, human, and he knew no empire could ever face them again. The council was disbanded, replaced by a new coalition sworn to peace. They called it the Pact of Sol, a promise written not in power but in fear, a vow that no one would ever again threaten Earth or its descendants. Meanwhile, deep within the vanguard, Admiral Stone stood in the observation chamber. The stars stretched endlessly before her, bright, quiet, and fragile. Carter's hologram appeared beside her, his form flickering gently. "You did it," he said softly. "You stopped the war." Stone didn't smile. She just nodded, her gaze distant. "No, Carter. We only reminded them." Behind her, the walls pulsed faint blue as the ship's AI spoke again. "Admiral, fleet systems report readiness. No threats detected." She placed her hand on the console. "Keep them watching," she murmured, not out of fear but remembrance far below. Earth's surface was alive again. Cities of glass and silver shone under golden skies. Children laughed where once craters had scarred the land. Forests grew over ruins. Oceans healed. And for the first time in 300 years, human songs echoed across the waves. A civilization reborn not from conquest, but from patience throughout the galaxy. Alien scientists tried to understand how the humans had survived. Their probes scanned the edges of Sol, searching for clues. What they found only deepened the mystery. Structures older than any known species floated in orbit. Monuments made of unknown alloys, each one engraved with human names and a single phrase, "We endured." On the distant world of Zareth, an alien historian stood before a group of students. He pointed to a hologram of the Terran symbol, the white circle and blue line. "This," he said quietly, "is not a threat. It is a reminder." The students listened in silence as he continued. "When humanity vanished, we celebrated. When they returned, we trembled. And when they chose mercy instead of destruction, we finally understood what strength truly means." Back aboard the Vanguard, Admiral Stone walked alone through the long metallic corridors. Her steps echoed like whispers of history. In the command chamber, she stopped before the great observation window. Outside, the Terran fleet rested in orbit. Silent and perfect, each ship a symbol of humanity's will. "Status report," she said quietly. "Peace sustained," the AI replied. Stone nodded. "Then let it stay that way." The stars shimmered as the Vanguard turned toward deep space. Slowly, one by one, the Terran ships engaged their cloaking fields. Their lights dimmed until they were nothing but shadows against the endless night. To the watching telescopes of alien worlds, the humans simply vanished, no explosion, no trace, no farewell. Just silence, but in that silence the galaxy felt something profound. Not the silence of absence, the silence of watchful eyes. Every empire knew they were being observed, and so war ceased not out of goodness, but out of memory. Decades passed, then centuries. The story of the Vanguard became legend. Some said it still roamed between stars, guarding unseen borders. Others believed it returned to the edge of the void where it first appeared. But all agreed on one truth. The Terrans were not gone. They were simply waiting. One quiet dawn, somewhere beyond the reach of known maps, a single transmission flickered to life on a forgotten relay station. The message was old, faint, but unmistakably human. It said, "We never left." And then, once again, the galaxy went silent because even in their absence, humanity remained the one constant truth of the stars, unyielding, unstoppable, and eternal. The ghost that had become the guardian, the storm that had become peace, and the silence that was never truly silent at all.